We're going live with Chris Wark. Chris beat cancer. Chris did beat cancer in 2004. He's going to tell us all about how he did it. It's an amazing story. So stick around and you're not going to be disappointed. What's going on, everyone? We got Chris joining us today. Chris Wark's going to come talk to us about his cancer journey. And there he is. Let's bring him on. Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you here, man. I think I first connected with you almost a decade ago, and on Facebook, and it's good to make the face-to-face conversation here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Great, man. Great. Well, guys, Chris Wark, anytime, if you're not following him, just click that arrow right up there. You can follow him back without leaving. But he's got an amazing journey, and we're going to get into the details about how he beat cancer. I believe it was in 2004. You were diagnosed, and through diet and lifestyle change, you had a miraculous recovery. And so I want to get into the details of that, and I'll share my journey as well about my father and his cancer, which has led me down the rabbit hole to understanding cancer and everything as well, and the potential the body has to heal. So Chris, welcome, man. Tell us a little bit, just jump in and tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, like I said, man, I appreciate you having me on, Ben, and just the opportunity to share my story means a lot. You know, I think there's a lot of people out there that need to understand that cancer does not have to be a death sentence, that the body creates cancer and the body can heal it if given the proper nutrients and care. And the big message here is that if you're willing to change your life, you can help yourself survive and thrive. You can help yourself heal if you're willing to help yourself. And that is the big caveat. And a lot of people are not willing to change their life. But I imagine most of the folks that follow you are not of that mindset, right? If they're eating plant-based, right? If they're into health and holistic health and healing and nutrition, they are of the right mindset, right? They understand that your daily choices affect your future. Your daily choices produce health and vitality in your body over time. And if you maintain those choices, you maintain your health and vitality. You can recover your health and vitality if you've lost it, right? If you're struggling with chronic disease. And, you know, I didn't know any of this back when I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, which was December 2003. I was 26 years old. And, you know, I was just life in the fast lane, man. I was eating, you know, the typical American diet, of course, tons of meat and dairy, tons of processed food and junk food and fast food. I was an entrepreneur. I was, you know, just a lot of stress, but working really hard, and actually liked what I was doing, but I, you know, was just burning the candle at both ends, and started having abdominal pain. And eventually, I put it off for a long time because it wasn't terrible pain, but it was just a sort of a nagging problem. Eventually went to a doctor, got a colonoscopy after being referred around, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and they found a golf ball-sized tumor in my colon. That is the large intestine, for anyone that doesn't know human anatomy, which I did not at age 26. Wasn't exactly sure what a colon was, besides a punctuation mark. And so that, you know, it was a super scary time because, you know, cancer is a life-threatening disease. We've all seen, I think, I had not at that time, but now, 18 years later, spoiler, I'm still alive and well, but you know, we've all seen people in our life that have been diagnosed with cancer, that have gone through treatment, and that suffered immensely and died.
Yeah.
And so it's a scary disease, right? For that reason, because we've seen not only people die from it, but we've seen how horrific the treatments are. And so I was told you need surgery right away. We got to get this thing out of you before it spreads and kills you. And so they wanted to have me in surgery literally within a couple days. And this was just a couple days before Christmas. And this is very typical, by the way, of how the cancer industry operates. As soon as you get a diagnosis, you're rushed into treatment out of fear before you understand what's happening to you. They use fear to motivate you and coerce you into saying yes to surgery, chemo, radiation. And these are very brutal and very destructive treatments. And surgery is the least risky of the three. So anyway, I was like, okay, I didn't know what else to do. And I postponed the surgery about 10 days because I just didn't want to be in the hospital over Christmas. So I went in on December 30th. They took out a third of my large intestine. That's where the tumor was. Took out some lymph nodes, and they said, you're stage 3C. We think we got it all, but you're going to need 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. And the reason they told me that is because there's no way they can get it all, because cancer cells are microscopic. And you can fit 1 billion cancer cells like on the head of a pencil. It's like, so, they can get the obvious cancerous tissue, but they can't remove all the circulating tumor cells and circulating cancer stem cells from your body. And that's the point of chemotherapy. And so my hospital visit was very strange, because the very first meal they served me after taking out a third of my large intestine was a sloppy Joe. So, sloppy Joe, like, nobody likes them. They don't serve them in restaurants. The only place I knew that you could get a sloppy Joe was summer camp, the military, and prison. That's where you get sloppy Joes, right? And so, it was just very surreal for them to be serving this to me, the cancer patient, and serving it to the guy who had the quadruple bypass down the hall. Like, why are we serving this horrible food to sick people, right? This horrible food. And it's because they don't care what you eat, right? The medical industry has no regard for nutrition. They have no regard for healing. It's more about treatment. And so, because treatment's what makes money, healing doesn't make money. That got the wheels turning. I thought that was very strange that they were serving this horrible food to sick people in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, I was told I could go home, and my surgeon came in to check on me, and he said, we were just having a conversation about what was next, what to expect and all that. And I happened to say, is there any food I need to avoid? And his answer was no, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
I'm going to, by the way, guys, if you're just tuning in, this is Chris Wark. Chris has an amazing book called ChrisBeatCancer. He's talking about his cancer journey and how he beat cancer. A lot of it regarding nutrition-based protocols and how the body truly heals. So if you're not following Chris, click that arrow right up here. You can follow him. And it's great to have you here. And I want to just share one quick story. We brought my father in to get chemotherapy. He had a mixed cell lung cancer. And the doctor gave him a 2 to 3% chance to live 5 years. He gave him a 10% chance to live 2 years. And so I wiped off my desk. I just, okay, I'm going to focus. Maybe there's a solution. At this point, I had no idea on alternative cancer therapies. And I started researching and finding out some clues and realizing, wait, there's more. How come they're not telling us about this in the hospital? How come our doctors aren't telling us about this or that? And what I had found out with my father is we went to the oncologist, and I said, Doc, is there anything we should do in terms of what he should eat? He says, food didn't cause it. Food's not going to help it. Keep him away from raw foods and vitamins.
Yeah, that was some great advice right there. Raw foods and vitamins.
But I can relate to you, right? Regarding the journey to some degree that you've been on here.
Yeah, this is the sort of nonsensical things that doctors often say to cancer patients, right? Don't take any vitamins. Don't eat fruits and vegetables. Watch out for the carrot juice, right? But chemo's fine.
And guys, by the way, if you want questions, because I see people putting some questions in, we try to grab as many of the comments as possible, but we can't catch them all. But if you do have a specific question, at the bottom there should be a little arrow, a little bubble, like a thought bubble with a question mark in it. Put the question there, and we'll get to a few at the end of the conversation here. So, all right, Chris, so here you are at the end of this journey. You're getting a clean bill of health, cancer-free. And where did you go from there? And how did you branch from this to where you are today with helping people to understand true healing?
Well, you know, that was the low point really of my journey, is because I get home and I'm told I need chemotherapy, and I didn't know what else to do. And I was struggling with depression and discouragement and hopelessness. And and as I sobered up and got off the pain medication, you know, I started to think about my life and my future, and like, you know, and cancer has a way of resetting your perspective. You know, things that you thought were important, that you cared about, suddenly become frivolous to you, you know, and you realize, like the old adage is that, you know, the healthy person cares about everything. The sick person only cares about one thing. That's getting well. And so I started to think, you know, again, think about what was important to me, and how I wanted to live my life, and how much time I had left. And the more I thought about that, you know, it just became clear to me that I didn't want to do chemotherapy, right? I didn't want to do it. The idea of poisoning my way back to health didn't make sense to me. I didn't have another plan. I didn't know anything. It's not like I knew what to do, because I didn't, but I knew what I didn't want to do. And so I prayed about it, and I just said, God, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me. Like, it was just a prayer of desperation and faith, just believing that, you know, something would come, right? That I would get an answer, I would get direction. And I'm a Christian, so, like, you know, this is where your faith is really put to the test, is when you are challenged with an extremely difficult circumstance in life beyond your control. So actually, when a lot of people find their faith in God, right? When they're forced to, it's like there's no atheist in the foxhole, right? That kind of deal. And so I prayed, and I just asked for help. And 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a man in Alaska who was a friend of my dad's, and he sent me this book about raw food. And the guy who wrote it, George Malcolmus, had healed his colon cancer with a raw food diet. He'd healed it. No surgery, no radiation, no chemo. And that had been, I don't know, like 30 years prior. He was still alive. And so I, you know, as I'm reading his book, I just knew it was an answer to prayer. I got so much encouragement and hope from him and from his story. And, you know, sometimes it just takes one person's story to change your life, right? One person can make such a huge difference in your life, and you don't need a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial, right, to make a change in your life, right? You just need one person to tell you, hey, I did it, right? I accomplished this thing that you're trying to accomplish. I accomplished it. And if I did it, you can do it too, maybe. And so that's the way I thought about it. I thought, well, man, if this guy got well, maybe I can get well. And, you know, and he made the case that the reason we're so sick is that we're, you know, eating all this processed food, fast food, and junk food, too much meat and dairy, that our diet and lifestyle is making us sick. And our environment too, right? All that works together. And so that made sense to me. It was easy to believe, and it empowered me with this revelation, which was the way you're living is killing you. And when I had that revelation, I realized, okay, if that's true, I'm going to just operate as if that is true, then I probably need to change my life in big ways. I need to take massive action and change everything in my power. Trust God with the rest. And also find some, you know, healthcare professionals to support me in what I'm doing. And so, you know, that was an incredibly transformative, basically, week where I was like reading and started researching and started to get hope about that I could heal. I could survive and thrive and heal. And so overnight, I changed my diet. Right? Overnight. I mean, anyone can change their diet overnight. You don't have to go to school. You don't need a degree. You don't need any special training, right? You just need to make
Yeah.
a decision to do it. And so I converted to a raw food diet, went to Whole Foods, loaded up the cart with as many raw fruits and vegetables as I could, and had a basic game plan, and bought a juicer. I decided I'm gonna start juicing carrots and other vegetables, and I'm gonna make some giant salads and just figure this out. You know, just gonna figure out how to just pump my body full of nutrition. And I just figured, I'm gonna try to overdose on nutrition. What would happen? Because I was actually curious. I was excited. I was interested to see what would happen if I only ate raw food, all organic, straight from nature, right? Unadulterated, unprocessed food. If that's all I ate, certainly something good will happen. This is the way
what a crazy concept. Eat what our body's designed to consume.
Yeah, and so that, it's not an incredibly complex thought process, right? It's very simple.
But yet so rare. So uncommon.
Rare indeed. And I think the truth is simple. Lies are complicated. I say this all the time. The truth is simple. And it's not always easy to do, to do that simple thing you need to do to change your life. But most of the time, the biggest benefits we get from life are by making very simple changes.
Yeah.
And so I just jumped in feet first, adopted a raw food diet, started juicing, and I was on my way. And then that was the catalyst, right? It was that one step, like, took me down a completely different path. And it changed my mindset, right? So I was no longer a victim of disease. This is really important because cancer patients are victimized by the industry. They're told there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you need to change about your life. You're just a helpless victim of cancer, and we are so sorry for you. And here's a hug and a pat on the back and a donut and a cookie and a Diet Coke.
And a
right?
donut and a Diet Coke. Yeah.
And so they're disempowered, right? They're because when you're a victim, you're helpless, right? You cannot help yourself. And so I had, this kind of, I was just able to break out of that feeling sorry for myself, why me, victims mentality. And I just realized this is my life now. I got to take control of it, right? I got to take the bull by the horns and do everything in my power to help myself heal. And so the adventure began, and a lot of people around me didn't understand, and they told me I was crazy, and that was hard. It's hard when people around you criticize you and tell you you're wrong and you're making a mistake and you're being stubborn. But I'm an only child, so I was kind of that was helpful. I think
it's incredible, man. I love your journey. There's so many parallels in my family and what you're doing, and it led me. So I love the idea that you're taking this chance on yourself. You're having faith. And guys, if you're just tuning in, a lot of people just joining. We're with Chris Wark. Chris is talking about his healing from cancer journey, and now he's gone on to write a book, and he's talking he's speaking and helping people to understand what true healing is all about. If you're not following Chris already, you can click that arrow right there, and you can follow him. Make sure to check out his content. I've been following Chris for a long time now, and I'm really impressed by. Just really grateful that you're willing to have the courage to speak out, because it is something that you can get judged by. Going against the mainstream in anything is difficult. So here you are taking this chance, this risk. A lot of people are throwing out questions too, and if you put the questions in the question bubble, we're going to get to a few at the end of the conversation. But can we talk a little bit about the food choices that you made? Raw foods. Pretty straightforward, but why raw food? Did you incorporate meat into that? Just maybe give us a little more focus on what the foods were that you were consuming and still do today.
Yeah. And for anybody watching, I have a book. I have 3 books. One is called
3 books. I'm sorry not to.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's totally okay. But my book is called ChrisBeatCancer. That was the first book, and that tells my whole story and like all the details about what I did. It's all in there. So I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can as I talk and tell my story. But if you want to know really everything I did and everything I learned, ChrisBeatCancer, the book. will be very helpful to you, especially to anyone in your life that has cancer, or if you just want to prevent it. But so like, I didn't have a big strategy in the beginning. I just had this guy who wrote a book, and he said he ate a raw food diet and drank a bunch of carrot juice and his body healed. Right. And so I was like, okay, I'll do that. Right. There wasn't a whole lot of like investigation, or I didn't have any studies, didn't have any science. Like I said, I just had one person's testimonial. And that sounds like a pretty big gamble, but again, I believed that this was an answer to prayer. I asked for something, this showed up, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And of course it made sense to me. So what I ended up doing was I would juice, first thing in the morning, I would make 64 ounces of juice. And in the beginning, it was just straight carrot juice. And I would drink that throughout the day. So that's about a half a gallon of carrot juice. Over time, I added more things to it. I got, some guidance from a naturopath. And he was like, oh, you need to add some beet to it, and celery and ginger root, turmeric, stuff like that. And so, 64 ounces of juice, make it first thing in the morning. And then I would have some juice, sort of through the morning, mid-morning. And then for lunch, I made a giant salad. I started, I kind of realized that, there's a lot of these books out there. Well, at the time, there weren't that many, but there was a few books out there that were like raw food, how to eat a raw diet, and raw food recipes. And I got some of those books, and I just didn't really like, them. The recipes, a lot of them were very difficult and required dehydrators and lots of gadgets and equipment, a lot of prep time, lots of time in the kitchen to make all these like sort of gourmet raw recipes that looked beautiful, and I'm sure they were delicious, but it was like, this isn't working for me. So I just realized I just need to eat as many vegetables as possible. Like, how do I do that? What's the easiest way for me to consume the most amount of vegetables and the most variety? And that's with the giant salad, right? Giant bowl, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, onions, mushrooms, sprouts, like sprouted legumes, garbanzo beans, mung beans, sprouted lentils, and then I would put sauerkraut on there, peppers, and then I realized, oh, there's all these spices that are really good for cancer and for anti-inflammatory benefits in the body, things like that. So I was putting oregano on there, and curry powder, turmeric, garlic powder, right, and cayenne pepper, and so and then I would made a dressing with olive oil and apple cider vinegar, and it was delicious. Like, it was so good.
Yeah. Right.
All those vegetables, all those spices, and the sauerkraut and the vinegar. I mean, it just is so savory and delicious. And I was like, wow, this is really good. So I was like, this is what I'm going to eat every day for lunch and dinner. This is it. This is my meal. And it's the most diverse anti-cancer meal possible. Like, you cannot get more diversity than what I just described. I mean, it's like, so I knew I had to create a simple routine that I could do every day without thinking about it, that would be sustainable. And so for me, that was it. Juicing, giant salads, and then also fresh fruit and fruit smoothies. And so once I kind of got that organized, which didn't take long, then again, that was one less thing to think about. And I knew, okay, every day I'm nourishing my body at the highest possible level. I'm flooding my body with nutrition. And what else can I do? And so there was this sort of stepwise progression of reading and researching and learning more. And then I found a naturopathic doctor. He connected me with an integrative oncologist. So then I was adding herbal therapies and supplements, and I did IV vitamin C treatments and some other things, And
if we can, before we move on to some of those other things, I was watching one of your speeches, and you asked the audience you said a quiz, and you said there was a study done where they took the extract of directly of plants and put it on the cancer cells to see if it was having an impact. And you were talking about those plants that had the most impact, which number one was garlic that you had mentioned, which I found fascinating. And first of all, a lot of people don't recognize that there is scientific peer-reviewed literature out there, or in studies at least, although uncommon and not well publicized, that there is data showing how food does have an impact directly on the cancer. So did you want to talk about some of those foods that have high anti-cancer property?
I'd love to. Yeah, and there's more studies on this than any one person can read at this point.
Yeah.
They've been studying the nutritional value of food for many, many decades, and specifically the anti-cancer effects of compounds in food, fruits and vegetables, plant food. Interestingly, meat and dairy have very little to none. They really just don't have much impact on cancer cells. You can't, put milk on cancer cells and kill them. You can't squirt, au jus or gravy on cancer cells in petri dish and kill them.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same impact.
Doesn't work. But it turns out you can drip the extracts of vegetables on cancer cells and kill them, and they've done this in several different studies. But one study that I talk about in my book is they took 32 different vegetables, dripped them on cancer cells to see what would happen, and the number one cancer killer was garlic. I mean, it multiple cell lines of cancer. They had 8 different cell lines. It basically stopped the growth of cancer in almost all the cell lines they tested it on. And the top 10 anti-cancer vegetables are basically the allium family and the cruciferous family. So the allium vegetables are garlic, onions, and leeks. The cruciferous family is broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, kohlrabi. And so this study came out a few years after I had, kind of gone through the beginning of my cancer journey. And so, but when I found it, I was so excited because I was like, well, this is exactly what I was eating, right?
Yeah,
this
amazing.
is the giant salad.
Yeah.
It was tons of cruciferous vegetables, and I was consuming tons of garlic because I had read about garlic in several other books, and that garlic was anti-cancer. Like that's been known since Hippocrates, right? That's been known for a long time in the natural health and healing movement about, garlic and cancer. And so now the cool thing about science is, right, that scientists can test these things in the lab, and they can demonstrate that, yes, these foods have anti-cancer potential. Get them in your body, right? Let them do what they do. And so, and get them in copious amounts. The nice thing about fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, it's almost impossible to kill yourself, right?
Yeah.
With too much garlic. I don't know that it's ever happened, right?
I don't hear of too many ODs on garlic, yes.
I have overdosed on carrot juice, and it turned my skin orange, okay? That's what happens when you overdose on carrot juice.
Did you actually experience that?
Oh, yeah, I was orange for 2 years.
Oh, for real? Like it was an extended period of what do they call that?
Carotenosis.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just when you consume excessive amounts of beta carotene, your body stores it in your skin. And I was consuming so much carrot juice every single day, every day, that my skin turned orange. And it stayed orange until I backed off the carrot juice. And so, and the way you can tell the difference between someone who has jaundice or they just have yellow skin from too many carrots or sweet potatoes is their eyes, right? Jaundice turns your eyes yellow. Carrot juice doesn't do that.
Ah, okay. Very good point. So, guys, we're having an amazing conversation with Chris. So grateful, and been looking forward to this for a long time to talk to you. If you're not following Chris, you can click that arrow right there. Chris has 3 books out. ChrisBeatCancer was the first one, and that's the one that's always been on my radar. Just a wealth of information in this journey of cancer therapy and healing. And you were starting to go on, and I wanted you to put some more emphasis on the nutrition aspect of it, because it is a big part. But you mentioned that you started to do some more research and some self-practice and some other practices. You want to explain some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So cancer and health in general, really, it's all about your immune system, right? It's all about your immune system. And I think people are a lot more aware now of how important your immune system is since 2020, right? There's been so much chatter about immunity and your immune system, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, the same things you do to strengthen your immune system to help prevent chronic disease, you can also do to help prevent infectious disease, right? These are the same cells that are scavenging your body, looking for invaders to identify and eliminate. So if you have a strong immune system, you have B cells and T cells, natural killer cells, that their job is to identify and eliminate cancer cells. That's their job. And I heard one statistic that we produce, something like 100,000 cancer cells a day in our body, and some people more. And so every day, you have cancerous mutated type cells in your body that your immune system is cleaning up. That's normal human life process. It's a normal biological process. So, so strengthening the immune system, nutrition is a big part of it, right? That's a big part. But there's other things you can do that also strengthen your immune system. Exercise is huge. Exercise turns off genes that promote cancer growth. It switches on anti-cancer genes in the body. And that's any kind of exercise, from walking to running to jazzercise, Zumba, CrossFit, doesn't matter. Like, any exercise is good. It also is one of the best antidepressants. It also increases, blood flow and circulation, improves your cardiovascular health, improves your metabolic health, helps you maintain a healthy weight, helps prevent bone loss and atrophy in your muscles as you age. Like, exercise is so wonderful, and it's so underrated. People just think, oh, I need to exercise to lose weight, right? Or I need to exercise to look good on the beach, right? That's fine, but the benefits of exercise are so much bigger than those two things, right? Than having an externally attractive beach body, right? And so that became a part of my life, right? Exercise. And then stress and stress reduction. I started, as I'm reading book after book by alternative and holistic and natural health practitioners and some holistic cancer survivors, like, these recurring themes kept coming up, right? It was about strengthening your immune system with nutrition and exercise and detoxification, which is what happens naturally when you eat tons of fruits and vegetables and you stop eating a bunch of processed junk, right? You stop toxifying, right? When you stop putting toxic, artificial, man-made food in your mouth and man-made chemical lotions and potions on your skin, then your body's toxic load comes way down. And then it can focus resources on healing.
Amazing. I wanted to share one just about the mental aspects of it. You were talking about the mental aspects, and you're truly changing your biochemistry through exercise and everything else. But one thing that I found fascinating, I remember when I was doing my research for my father, and by the way, I never finished that story. He ended up beating his cancer, doing a integrative approach to the Block Center here in Chicago area where I'm from.
Yeah,
but,
Keith Block.
Yeah, I figured you probably did, because he really put that study on the map with the antioxidants and chemo and the combination and how it's actually beneficial. And but coming back to the mental aspect, there were studies done, and those who actually did group therapy alone during cancer treatment had an extended life, a pretty significant extended life expectancy, just by getting that community, that group, that support. And I'm sure it's reducing stress, reducing cortisol. I mean, there's all these mental aspects to it as well. So, I mean, a lot of this is, studied by or proven by studies and not just theoretical ideas. There's so much more evidence based, to support all of these different modalities to add on, but Chris, from your standpoint, and I'm curious from your journey and others that you interact with, it's like, I think I know the answer, but I kind of want to hear it from you. It's like, if all these things have been proven, why aren't they being incorporated into mainstream care?
Well, the industry is so big, and the wheels of the cancer industry turn very slowly, unfortunately. And the main wheel turners are drugs, right? And so you have to remember, like, this industry is designed to make money. That's what it's there for, right? It's a profit generating industry. And drug companies don't care about nutrition. They don't care about blueberries or garlic, right? They care about creating a new molecule that they can patent and sell with exclusive rights and make billions and billions of dollars. That's what they are in business to do. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy. This is what they do. And so, most of the studies that are published about nutrition and anti-cancer molecules in food, for example, or intervention studies like Dr. Dean Ornish did, where they proved you can reverse the progression of early stage prostate cancer with a plant-based diet, exercise, and stress reduction. That was in 2005, I think. studies like that, that are conducted by just incredibly brilliant and brave and truly, curious scientists, are just ignored. They're just ignored by the industry. They put them out there, and a few people notice, and maybe they incorporate those things into their practice and give their patients better advice. But generally speaking, that kind of stuff is not pushed down from on high, because there's no money in nutrition. There's no money in stress reduction. There's no money in exercise. There's no money in community and social support. There's no money in forgiveness. So
Wow.
that's why it's not, and most of these people that are involved with these cancer charities and organizations and hospitals will say, oh no, those are great things. We encourage our patients to do that. But they don't, they don't. It's not real encouragement. It's not real guidance. It's just like, oh sure, yeah, no, those are wonderful things, right? But no one's sitting down and saying, hey, you have to do these things if you want to increase your odds of survival. And you can increase your odds of survival by a large margin if you do these things, the things that I talk about in my first book. And there's a ton of evidence and there's a ton of science behind it. Like, you should do these things, right? They say the thing they said to your dad, right? Don't change your diet. Don't eat raw food. Don't take any supplements. Don't get on the internet. No, you don't need to do any of that stuff. You just make sure you don't miss your next chemo appointment. Like, those are the real life conversations that patients are having with their doctors in most cases. Like, Keith Block is an example of an integrative oncologist who is not treating his patients that way, which I think is fantastic. And they're out there, right? But they're definitely in the minority at this point. And it's sad, it's really sad. And it's, if the industry were different, no one would be listening to me, right? If the industry was actually taking care of patients and saving lives, and we didn't have 600,000 people dying of cancer every year in the United States, no one would care about my message, right? The reason they're listening to me is because they know the cancer industry is failing. And probably the most damning statistic out there is the fact that since the 1960s, the death rate from cancer, from all cancers combined in the United States, has only come down about 5%, right? Since the 1960s, that's 60 years. And they've only reduced the death rate of all cancers by 5%. Now, there's a few cancers that they've made better progress than that, like childhood leukemia, testicular cancer, and lymphomas. But like the solid tumor cancers, breast, brain, liver, colon, ovarian, cervical, even sarcoma, like, they have made dismal progress in reducing the death rate. And that's the true measure of success.
You said something really fascinating before, which is, you articulated it well. You said it's not necessarily food that heal. And by the way, guys, none of this is nutritional or professional advice. This is just for educational
just friendly
purposes.
Advice.
Friendly advice. But you said something. And by the way, guys, if you're not following Chris, click that arrow. We're going to take questions in a few minutes. But Chris's work's amazing. This has been an awesome conversation. You said something, it's not necessarily food that heals the body, but food allows the body to heal, and the body then heals itself. Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it.
Gina just said her dad has prostate cancer. Go to ChrisBeatCancer.com. I just posted a new interview today with Dr. Dean Ornish, who did the study showing that you can reverse the progression of prostate cancer with a plant-based diet, exercise, and stress reduction. I just posted an interview today with Dean Ornish.
Wow.
They're like, go there, watch it, send your dad to it. Hopefully it'll inspire him to change his diet and to take control of his life and his health. But that's right. It's like, food isn't really curing cancer necessarily, although there are compounds in food that kill cancer cells. So that's good. You want them circulating in your body. But generally speaking, what food is doing, it's empowering your immune system to help you heal, right? That's what it's doing. It's supplying nutrition to your cells. It's supplying ammunition. And the analogy I like to use is your immune system is an army, right? To fight cancer cells. Nutrition is the ammunition for your immune system. The problem is chemotherapy wipes out your immune system. So with no immune system, you're fighting with no army.
Yeah.
right? And that's the paradox of chemo, right? It'd be like
Yeah.
if you had two giant armies on a battlefield, and one army decided to drop a nuke on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
Well, they killed everybody. They killed the enemies. They killed all their own troops. But what they didn't realize is the enemies have more troops that are coming. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, what? We just wiped out our entire army, and we thought we wiped out their whole army, except we didn't, because they've got more soldiers coming. So that is the major paradox of chemotherapy, that people just, it's not explained to them. They don't understand, like, this is going to wipe out your immune system. And what chemo also often does is it makes the cancer stem cells more aggressive. It doesn't kill the cancer stem cells. It shrinks tumors, right? It kills some cells in the tumors, and the tumors shrink. But if you don't kill the stem cells, they will keep reproducing once the chemo treatments are over, and they will spread through the body unchecked, because your soldiers, your army, your immune system is gone, right? And so this is why so many of you watching have seen this with people in your life. You've seen them go through chemo, get a report saying you're cancer free, and there's everybody celebrating and so happy. And then a few months down the road, maybe a year, they go get a checkup, and they've got spots on their liver and their lungs and in their bones or in their brain. Like, what happened? Why is it all over my body? Because your immune system was wrecked by chemo. And when the chemo treatments ended, the cancer stem cells got back to work.
Wow.
You know, so
yeah, please.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, that, again, what I spend most of my time doing, obviously, it's talking about nutrition and the things that we can do to strengthen our bodies, to become more resilient, to reduce our risk of getting cancer, to increase our risk of our odds of survival if we have cancer, but also to understand the perils and pitfalls of the cancer industry. Because as a survivor and patient advocate, you know, I am compelled. I feel a responsibility and a duty to humanity, you know, to anyone that wants to understand these things, so they can make the best decision for them. And I do have a free guide, I should mention. It's called 20 Questions for Your Oncologist. Great. If you go to ChrisBeatCancer.com, there's a link to it on every page of my website. It's a free download, and you've got to get this list of questions because they're so important. You have to ask them. And if you do ask these questions to your doctor, you will get information that will empower you to make a better decision about your treatment. Because patients don't know what the questions to ask. They don't ask the right questions, and they just get rushed in out of fear, like I said earlier.
Amazing. You know, that is so important, because it is fear, and you're really feel like you're powerless, you know, but you don't have to be. And even if you say, well, my father's not going to change his diet. My father's not going to go become a raw vegan or juice. And but I think what's important to recognize is there's things you can integrate to increase your odds. And it doesn't have to be necessarily to do it in a particular way. And I think the idea of just starting, the more you integrate, I think that, you know, the stronger your immune system becomes, the more knowledgeable you get, then, you know, you start to move the needle in the right direction. Yeah,
you know, and you don't have to be a raw foodist or a raw vegan for the rest of your life. I'm not a raw vegan anymore, but I eat a plant-based diet still. It's been 18 years, and I still care about preventing future cancer because I'm only 44 years old. Like, you know, I'm planning on living 40 or 50 more years, maybe 60 years, right? But, and I want them to be healthy. I want to be strong and have a lot of vitality and energy and feel good and not struggle with chronic disease like I see so many other people doing. And so I'm just as serious about taking care of myself now as I was then. But the great thing is that, yeah, you don't have to be a raw foodist, but if you have cancer, massive action. Like, you've got to take massive action if you want to get well. And, you know, this is important too, because there are people watching, I'm sure, that have somebody in their life that has cancer, and that you're trying to help them. And sometimes the people that you want to help the most, you can't help.
Yeah.
You just can't. You can't help them. They won't receive help, right? They won't help themselves, right? So you can encourage them and bring information to them and and try to be a support. But at the end of the day, the patient has to be in the driver's seat of their healing journey. They have to be the one, right, in charge of their own life. You can't drag them along and force feed them, right, broccoli and juices. Like they have to be the one that's running the juicer. Like they have to be the one going to the store, picking out the produce, putting it in the cart, paying for it. Like, to me, that is such an important part of the process. Like you got to get out of this quick fix mentality and this fast food mentality. Like, take a step back, rearrange your life, slow down, and start being very deliberate about the choices that you make every day. And so we kind of jumped away from this topic, but stress reduction is huge. When you're under stress, when you're in a state of fear, anxiety, worry, your immune system is suppressed. It's suppressed. We saw what happened in 2020, the biggest fear-mongering campaign I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it did absolutely no good. It put the population of the world in a state of fear, paranoia, anxiety, and stress. Not the good kind of stress, distress.
Right.
And when you're in a state of fear, you cannot make a good decision. You don't think rationally or logically. You are impulsive, and you're easily manipulated and easily coerced. And you want to get yourself out of that state, okay? And so for me, what I had to do was give my fear to God. Every time the fear of cancer would creep in, I would say, God, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid, I'm just giving you my fear, and I'm just trusting you to lead me and provide for me. And, Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. Today has enough trouble of its own. That's really good advice. Like, he said, don't worry about tomorrow. Like, don't do it. If you catch yourself worrying, just stop, right? Like, stop thinking that way. You have to break it, right? Because worry is a bad habit. It's a mental habit, and it is a bad one. And so I had to do that. I had to break that bad habit. And so every single day, right, multiple times a day, when I would remember that I had cancer, because you forget, right? You get distracted. I would do that. I would give my fear and worry to God. And so that was a huge lesson that it taught me. And practicing that, my faith and trusting God with my life and my future, and choosing not to be afraid and not to worry, that puts your body in a state of peace.
And I'll add to that. I was actually working on a alternative cancer documentary about 10 years ago when my father got the cancer. And so I went around and interviewed some Gerson therapy practitioners and Charlotte Gerson and Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez from New York. I became friends with him just shortly before he, unfortunately, surprisingly kind of passed. I interviewed a cancer survivor, and I said, you had such courage to take this route of an alternative route. He says, well, when you have knowledge, you don't need the courage, because when you know for a fact some of the science behind it. And I think, the idea of the worry is when the more we empower ourselves, the more we understand this is science-based, the more we understand and empower ourselves to take action, that also naturally reduces the worry. So I think a lot of times we want to, the freedom is not from the information, it's going through it. And when we get through to the other side, I think that sense of empowerment can make all the difference.
Yeah, facts over fear. I say this all the time, right? There's a lot of facts you need to understand.
Yeah.
And faith over fear, right? You want to make decisions that are based on facts and based on faith, not based on fear. Those are good decisions. Fear-based decisions are almost always the wrong decision. And unfortunately, what do we see? And the crazy thing is, like, in March 2020, when all this fear-mongering started, I was like, wow, this is exactly like what cancer patients deal with every day. Every single day, cancer patients are struggling with fear. They are fighting against fear, right? And what we saw in the world is every single day it was just fear about, some germ. And it consumed the hearts and minds of people. Yeah. And they became slaves to fear.
Yes.
Like it was, I said as much as I could say about it. I was really trying to push back at that time. I mean, I still am.
I
Just saying,
I
like,
really
this is
appreciate that in you,
yeah,
Chris.
it's
I just
like,
want to acknowledge that you're to speak out against such a sensitive topic, and I did the same. Both of us promoting nutrition, and to see you speak your truth on that.
well, it's not, and it's
Just to
not
applaud
my
that.
truth, right? Like,
It's the truth.
it's not my truth. I'm sharing what I believe is the truth, and I could be wrong, right?
Yeah.
My beliefs. These are my beliefs, and based on my experience and what I've seen, fear do to people in the cancer industry. I'm like, well, fear is the same. It doesn't matter whether it's cancer or a germ or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know what fear does to people. And if you're in a state of fear, you're vulnerable. And so, but again, this all goes back to taking personal responsibility for your life and your health, and being willing to change your life and take care of yourself in a way that you never have before. And the hopeful message is that, like, anyone can do what I did. Anyone can do what George Malcolmus did, which is then what I did, right? And many people after me have done in the last 12 years that, I've been a public figure and people have found out about me. And so, like, there's no magic formula. There's no miracle cure. There's no, quick fix, right? But your body creates cancer, and your body can heal it if given the proper nutrients and care. And that's where you have to take control of your life and your health, right?
Amazing. Guys, if you're not following Chris, obviously you're going to want to by now. So you can click that arrow right there. Check out his work. Check out his books, life-changing. I don't think there's a person out here who, if not just in their direct family, at least their extended family isn't affected by cancer. I don't know what the statistics are these days, but 43% of people or something I heard, affected directly by cancer. I think next to heart disease, it's the second killer, if not going back and forth between the two. But I'd love to take a couple questions, because I want to respect your time, and so
Sure.
maybe we could just do some fast questions to get through a few of them here, and then we'll let you get on with your day. But man, this has been fascinating. So let's jump in. Okay, let's see. In terms of different types of cancer, why don't I broaden the question? Someone says, does it help with rectal cancer? But just in terms of, are the different types of cancers, do the same concepts still apply, whether it's colon, breast, or any of the others?
Absolutely. Because what we're talking about now is holistic health and healing. And so the holistic approach to health is empowering your body to heal. Doesn't matter, brain, liver, lung, ovarian, cervical, rectal, colorectal, it doesn't matter. Like, if you do these things, you are serving your body in a way that provides nutrition at the cellular level, improved immune function, improved detoxification, improved antioxidant and anti-inflammatory function, like all the things that need to be happening in your body in order to heal. So yeah, there's no different protocol, right? That's like drug industry thinking, right? Like, oh, I need this drug for this type, and I need this drug for that type. It's like, no, you just need nutrition for all types, right? And the cool thing is, I've interviewed dozens and dozens of people who've healed advanced cancers, all types and stages, right, on ChrisBeatCancer.com. You can go and click on the survivor stories and watch these interviews, or you can type in a cancer type in the search bar and watch these interviews I've done. Lymphoma, leukemia, breast cancer, colon. So even multiple pancreatic cancer survivors.
Yeah.
That'll give you so much hope. And you'll also see, as you watch these interviews, you'll see the common threads between all of these survivors. You will see that they did the same things that I did, right? You will hear it from a different mouth, right? But it's the same approach. It's a total life transformation. And the plant-based diet is a key pillar.
That's incredible. Okay. Next question, and that was for next question is by Nell Scott 4. You mentioned something about reducing stress. Any foods for reducing stress? Do you have any quick comments on that?
Well, I think inflammatory foods and animal foods are actually stress promoters. And in fact, there's some new research that I just read today talking about the amino acid proline being linked to increase depression. So people that consume a lot of animal meat consume a lot of this amino acid proline, and it's linked to depression. So I think we don't, this is emerging, right? This research information, but yeah, your diet choices affect your brain chemistry. And so I think eating a plant-based diet is incredible for stress reduction. And I think meat and dairy promote a lot of anxiety and sort of like increased anger and frustration and things. But even more important than the diet is really getting to the heart of the matter, getting to the root cause of your anxiety. Because you have to ask yourself, like, what am I afraid of? Like, what am I really worried about? And is this rational? And being able to use your rational mind to think through your problems or potential problems or threats or whatever in your life and rationally assess the risk is so important. There's a great book by Dale Carnegie called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Fantastic book. To give you mental tools to really think through and reduce anxiety and stress, because there's a lot of lingering anxiety that people have. And part of that too is also just caused by the fact that if you're tuned in to the news, you are taking a dose of fear and anxiety every single day, right? And it's usually multiple doses, because think about all the different news stories, right? Oh, there's a problem in the Middle East. Oh, there's a problem with the economy. Oh, there's a problem with the germ. Oh, there's a problem with Russia, right? It's like, it's nonstop. All they want to do is tell you about every problem in the world, and your mind and your heart, we don't have the capacity to handle and process all the problems in the world. Like, if you think about hundreds of years ago, like if you lived in a town or a village, like you would hear about some little problems in the town or the village, but you wouldn't know about all the problems everywhere on planet Earth. Right? It's too much.
Yeah, and this pace, especially social media, and then fighting against the propaganda, and now we're getting all that overstimulation as well. So this is constant. There's a sense to be conscious of that. I'm glad you mentioned that aspect. The one common question that I'll try to like blanket the questions about diet. And again, this is Chris's perspective. Chris has done, 18 years now? Has it been almost?
Yeah, 18-year survivor. Yep.
So of different, protocols, research, direct discussions with survivors. But again, this is his perspective. It's not medical advice. Just want to stress that, since we'll be saving this live. There's a lot of questions. Someone say, how about eggs? How about dairy? How about ghee? I think there's a lot of wanting to cling on to the animal-based products, and maybe there's some validity to that from your research, but I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, there's two ways to look at it. The first is that if you really dig into the testimonies of people who have healed advanced cancer against the odds, or after they were told they were sent home to die, right, or with no treatment at all, you will find over and over and over they did it with a plant-based diet. Okay, so if your goal is to climb Mount Everest, well, you could do that two ways. One, you could just fly to Nepal and put on some hiking shoes and try to climb it, right? And you're going to die. Okay, you're not going to make it. Or you can read and research and study how people do it, and you can hire a Sherpa, and you can get the right gear and the right equipment and train and prep and prepare and follow the path that every other successful person who has climbed Mount Everest took, right? So learning from people who have done it before you is really important. So yes, I get those questions all the time. What about eggs? What about dairy? What about this? It's like, look, those are not part of the cancer healing diet that I followed, and they're not part of the cancer healing diet of pretty much everybody I know who has healed cancer. And so you've got that side of it, right? There's certainly people that want to quibble and argue, and it's fine. But at the end of the day, like, if your life is at stake and you're trying to get well, I suggest you imitate the people who have healed and do what they did. The flip side of it is, when you look at population studies around the world, and The Blue Zones is a great book for this. what you'll find is that the longest living people, the healthiest people on every continent, they eat predominantly plant-based. They're not strict vegans, but they eat plant-based diets, and they're about 95% plant-based on average. And what we know from multiple studies is that the more that animal products increase in your diet, the higher your risk of chronic disease, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, MS, autoimmune disease. Your risk is going to increase the more you consume, and it's going to decrease the less you consume. So you don't have to be 100% vegan, right? But if you really want to put yourself in the lowest risk category, then you need to eat a diet that's 95, 98, 99% plant-based. And so that's where I am. I'm 98, 99% plant-based. It's my goal now is just longevity. And again, looking at longevity and population studies, you just see this trend, this pattern over and over and over again. And the people that push back against this the hardest have what I call meat lovers bias. Meat lovers bias, right? It's the most pervasive bias in science and nutrition. Right? There are people who love to eat meat, and they're biased against any study that says, hey, you probably shouldn't consume tons of meat and dairy, right? And so they fight tooth and nail against any information that is contrary to their favorite, dietary preferences.
Yeah.
And so that, those are two ways to think about it.
Yeah, and I see that all the time. Like someone even said, well, Dave Asprey says this, or that guy said, nothing against Dave. I don't honestly know Dave's work, but I saw a comment with it. And you're going to find some data supporting the other side. You're going to find some data supporting the benefits of excessive protein and muscle gain and things like that. But the idea is you're talking about heart disease, you're talking about cancer, and the number one killers who are killing 80% of the deaths where they're coming from. You see the direct correlations between the animal products and these diseases, so it's kind of like, well, if we're talking about natural protection, immune system strength, and fighting against heart disease and cancer, the plant-based diet has so much evidence supporting it now, but there just seems to be a lot of clinging because there is a lot of confusion out there. And I think it's hard for people to know where to get the information.
Yeah, and I get it. People like to eat chicken and eggs and steak and pork and shellfish. They like it. It tastes good. I understand totally. But there's basically, like I said earlier, there's little to no benefit to healing cancer from those foods. And there's a number of ways that animal foods cause and contribute to cancer growth that have been well established. And I talk about these in my cookbook, in Beat Cancer Kitchen, which is a plant-based cookbook. But I can run through a few of them really quick. Like,
sure,
when you eat animal food, you raise IGF-1. That's insulin-like growth factor. IGF-1 is cancer rocket fuel. Animal foods are high in saturated fat and cholesterol. Cancer cells love cholesterol. Everybody thinks cancer cells love sugar. No, they love cholesterol and fat. And they also love glutamate, especially from animal food. Cancer cells are also empowered by heme iron from red meat. There is a molecule in animal food called NEU5GC, NEU5GC, that is a sugar molecule from animal flesh. You don't get it from fruits and vegetables. Also promotes cancer growth. When you cook animal food, you're creating carcinogenic compounds, heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So, I'm just scratching the surface here. There's a long list of ways that eating animal food can contribute to cancer growth. And I should mention that processed meat is a group 1 carcinogen. So
yeah, exactly.
Hot dogs,
which is the same category as cigarettes and other products like that.
Formaldehyde,
asbestos,
radioactive materials. Group 1 means that the evidence is completely substantiated. Like, there's so much evidence that there's, they're confident, right? The International Agency for Research on Cancer. So like hot dogs, bacon, sausage, salami, like deli meat, like lunch meats, these are all group 1 carcinogens. So that's a direct cancer causing food.
Sloppy Joes.
Sloppy Joes, red meat is a group 2 carcinogen. That means there's a lot of evidence, and they call it a probable cause of cancer, just eating red meat. And specifically, it's like colon and colon cancer, colorectal cancer, and pancreatic cancers are the main ones from those types of foods. So look, there's just a lot of evidence out there. Meat lovers hate it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to acknowledge it. But that's why. And obviously in the beginning, I didn't know any of this, right? I just had a guy story who healed cancer with the raw food diet and juicing. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then once I became a public figure sharing my story as a survivor, I realized, well, wait a second, I need to make sure this is correct. Like, is there any evidence? Is there any science like that animal foods promote cancer growth? Is there science that fruits and vegetables can help your body heal? And then I found it, right? I started reading and researching and learning, and it was like this whole world opened up to me that I didn't even know was there. And so, that's, my book is just jam-packed full of all that geeky and nutritional science stuff.
But you know what? It's great to see your passion. It's so evident, your passion and your sincere dedication to this mission. Okay, so leave us with this. And by the way, guys, I love the comments. We see a lot of the comments come through. Obviously, we're focused on the conversation, but it's appreciate everyone's contribution. They don't go unnoticed. I know we didn't get a chance to get to all the questions, but I think we answered so many of them indirectly as Chris has been giving us some great downloads here and so much information. So again, if you're not following Chris, click the arrow there, follow him, go check out ChrisBeatCancer.com as well. I'm assuming there's a link in your bio that will get them to all of this information we talked about today. But man, yeah, go check out the new prostate cancer podcast. Was it that?
Dr. Dean Ornish. Yeah, the Dr. Dean Ornish interview I just dropped. Yeah,
incredible. Dr. Dean Ornish is a kind of a legend in the plant-based community, and just well-respected doctor. I'm looking forward to checking that out. But leave us with this, Chris. What impact do you hope to have? What is your mission right now? What do you hope? What type of mark do you hope to leave on the world?
Well, that's a big question, but I'm pretty clear about what I'm doing. My goal is sort of multi-pronged, but number one is to give people, especially cancer patients, that spark of hope that I got from George Malcolmus when I was in the most terrifying season of my life, right? And that spark of hope is not just general, nebulous hope for hope's sake, okay? It is the hope that your body can heal, right? That you can heal, that you can change your life, that your choices matter, and that your choices today create your future, right? They create your life tomorrow. And so if you get on the healthy train, right, you can sow seeds of health and reap a harvest of health down the road, and you can stop sowing seeds of disease, right? Because you're doing one or the other, right? There's a harvest coming. What are you sowing? What are you planting? And so that is my goal. My mission is to help people understand that you can heal and to inspire that belief, because the most important thing in healing and restoring your health or healing is you have to believe that healing is possible. You have to believe it's possible. Like nothing happens without that. You have to believe it's possible. And then you have to believe that you can get well, and you have to want to get well. Right? So there's a progression of thought that has to be present in a person's mind, right? But just that belief that you can get well, right, is so powerful. And that's why I keep talking, keep sharing my story, keep interviewing people who've healed cancer against the odds, right? It's all for that same reason, right? Just to inspire anyone who's watching or listening, to inspire them with that spark of hope and that belief that healing is possible. And so once you believe it's possible, then hopefully that will give you enough motivation to start changing your life, right? If you believe it's possible, then you realize okay, I have agency, I have authority over my life, I have free will, I need to make better choices, right? I need to
Yep.
step back and take a hard look at my life and figure out what is serving me and what is hurting me. And I need to really reorganize and reprioritize my life. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what we do, right? That you're doing the same things, right? That's the mission, is just to empower people and with this message that you can heal and you can survive and thrive, and you don't have to be a victim of chronic disease, and that your genes don't determine your fate. Your choices determine your fate. You're not a helpless victim. You're not pre-programmed to die at age 53 and a half, right? Just because your mom or your dad or somebody in your family, your grandfather had some disease, it doesn't mean you're going to get it. And so diets run in families just like diseases do. And so, it is, I'm not saying it's easy. I get how attached people are and we are to food, and it's not easy to change your diet, but when you do, it will unlock something in you. It will empower you, and you'll realize, like I did, right? That, whoa, okay, if I can do this, if I can eat a raw food diet, like what else can I do? And
Yeah,
then the adventure begins.
man. Chris Work. Man, what a pleasure. I've known you for years. Had some minor back and forth text messages, but to have this direct conversation has been great, man. I really appreciate you carrying the torch and out there marching for people and all you're doing. And let's do this again soon.
Ben, it was really fun, man. And I'm so proud of you, and you're reaching a lot of people, and it's just awesome. Like, it's so cool because I know we had, interacted years ago, and I just lost touch. I didn't even know what you'd been up to. And so,
yeah, same. I moved over to Instagram and forgot about the Facebook world for the last 4 years. And then, yeah, good to see you on here and to reconnect. And yeah, man, keep it going. And let's keep in touch.
awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Great to have everyone here. Appreciate y'all. Oh, one last thing, guys. Feel free. I'm going to save this to my live, and so go ahead, and if you would, if you're feeling inclined, share this so other people can see it, please.